Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're going to be checking out some very cool practice battles featuring Mega AGGRON in the Mega Master League. As some of you may know, towards the end of this GBL season, there is going to be a Master League rotation where for an entire week, Mega Pokemon are allowed into GBL. And they've been releasing a lot of new Megas recently, and one that definitely caught my eye was Mega AGGRON. Mega AGGRON did get a new charge move with this season, Meteor Beam, and it is a force to be reckoned with. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out Mega AGGRON in action in the Mega Master League. Picking up a great lead in the first match, Mega AGGRON into Zekrom. Opponent is going to save switch into Landorus Incarnate. I'm going to bank some energy and then bring in my Giratina Origin. Giratina will be able to tank the first charge move, and then I'm going straight for the Shadow Ball. I've done enough chip damage already that this is easily going to be Shadow Ball range, so I'm going straight forward here. Giratina, Shadow Ball, able to land, and down goes Landorus. My opponent is more than likely going to be sending back in the Zekrom to go for a farm down. I'm going to try and make it to the Shadow Ball. Giratina dies with the move. That is quite unfortunate. I'm going to send back in AGGRON. They fire off a move, probably going to be the Wild Charge. Wild Charge is able to land. I tank it. I go for the Meteor Beam, and they send in a Mamoswine. Meteor Beam gets shielded, but my attack is now boosted. And look at the Dragon Tail damage tearing through the Shadow Mamoswine. Mamoswine is going to be firing off an Avalanche. I will commit the shield. AGGRON is low, but I can still get so much value here. I fire off the Heavy Slam. Heavy Slam gets the shield. Mamoswine looking for the farm down. It's a simultaneous KO. Mega AGGRON is an absolute beast. I can safely bring in Mewtwo. One Psy Strike will be more than enough to take care of the Zekrom, and that is a good game. Moving into the next match, picking up a great lead, Mega AGGRON into Dragonite. Opponent is going to save switch into Mega Scizor, and honestly, I do need to stay in here. My backline does not appreciate Mega Scizor, so I'm going to stay in with AGGRON and play this out. I'm going straight for the Meteor Beam. Meteor Beam, even if it's shielded, is going to buff up my attack. My opponent does commit the shield. My attack is now buffed, so even though the Dragon Tails are resisted, they are now doing extra damage. Scizor continues to spam out Night Slashes, and they get the boost. That is quite unfortunate. I will need to shield up the next Night Slash because it would probably be lethal. So I'm going to commit the shield, go for Meteor Beam number 2. Is my opponent willing to double shield the Scizor? They are not, and they let it go. That's big. In comes Excadrill. I'm going to respond with Mewtwo. I should be able to win CMP on the Focus Blast to their second move, but I'm a little worried about a catch here. So I'm going to farm up, go for the Psy Strike, and as expected, my opponent catches onto Dragonite. But instead of catching a Focus Blast, they just catch Mewtwo's hands. Mewtwo is going to overfarm, fire off another Psy Strike onto the Dragonite. Dragonite is going to let that through. Back in comes Exca. Exca is now going to look for a farm down. This will do quite a bit of damage. Exca is going to let that through, and they leave one off the back-to-back moves. So I bring in Giratina, throw one move, and then catch onto AGGRON, and this game is over. Giratina will comfortably be able to tank the energy here from Exca and farm all the way down. They're going to reach one final drill run. That's totally fine, and that is a good game. Picking up a dominant lead in the next match, Mega AGGRON into Sylveon. Opponent is going to immediately save switch into a Mega Gyarados, and I will need to stay in here with AGGRON. My backline is very weak to Mega Gyarados, so I'm very happy to see it here. My opponent fires off the Crunch, that hits for neutral, and they do get a defense drop. That defense drop is definitely unfortunate. I fire off the Meteor Beam, big damage onto the Gyarados. Gyarados will be able to reach one final charge move, and I'm going to commit the shield because I do definitely want switch advantage, because I need to keep my Giratina away from the Charmer. My opponent is going to send in their Excadrill. I'm going to farm up and go for the Heavy Slam. Heavy Slam is single resisted here. I'm buffed by one stage, so that will do some solid damage. They are able to get a very nice farm down, and I'm going to send in Gira to try and farm down myself. They have a ton of energy, but I do live 2 drill runs here, so I'm going to let this through. My opponent fires off the first. They continue to farm, and they're not able to reach 2 more. They're only going to get off 1 charge move here, and then my Shadow Claw is going to KO. In comes Sylveon. Game lags a little bit there, and I am able to finally fire off my Shadow Ball. This Shadow Ball will do some solid damage. My opponent is going to commit the shield, and now I send in my Mewtwo. Mewtwo is now in a prime position to close this endgame. I'm just going to start spamming out Psy Strikes. Sylveon will be able to tank one, but the next charge move that I throw is going to force that final shield. My opponent is going to commit the shield. Sylveon continues to farm. Sylveon will fire off a charge move just before I reach my final move, but I received the energy needed for the Psy Strike, so I'm just able to under-tap the Psy Strike here. This will be taking care of the Sylveon and securing the win. Picking up a tough lead in the next match, Mega Aggron into Metagross. Since I don't have Shadow Ball on Mewtwo, it's a bit awkward to safe switch Mewtwo into the Metagross, so as you're going to see, I decide to stay in and see how this matchup goes. They do have quite a lot of energy. I will commit the shield, but I get baited with a Meteor Mash. That's quite unfortunate. I'm going to return fire with the Meteor Beam. Meteor Beam is going to be resisted, but will still do some solid damage and buff up my attack. This is enough for an Earthquake. I will commit the second shield, and then my goal is to farm down. I'm down 2 shields, but at the very least, I leave with a boosted Mega Aggron and a ton of energy. My opponent sends in Mega Gyarados, and this is so bad. Mega Gyarados absolutely shreds my backline. Mega Aggron can do quite well against it, but I'm down 0 shields to 2, so things are not looking great for me. I fire off Meteor Beam number 2. I'm able to get both shields. This Mega Aggron is now boosted to the extreme. These Dragon Tails tearing through the Mega Gyarados. They fire off a Crunch, and that's gonna knock me out, but I am double weak in the back. I send in Mewtwo. I'm not able to outpace. Let's see how much damage this Crunch does. Crunch, nearly one-shots, and I get farmed down, and this is just game over. And they also have Zarude in the back. So since they were running a Psychic type on the lead, they were running Double Dark in the back to protect against Ghosts, and I just so happened to be extremely weak to Dark types in the back, so unfortunately this is going to be game over. I'm trying my best, firing off Shadow Balls, it's just not going to make a difference whatsoever. Shadow Ball just does not do enough damage to Zarude. Zarude takes out the Giratina, and that is a good game. Redemption opportunity in the next match as I lead Mega Aggron into another Metagross. This time I'm going to try safe switching out, bluffing like I have Shadow Ball, and the bluff works. My opponent is going to switch in Garchomp. Garchomp is at a massive energy disadvantage, so now Mewtwo gets to absolutely punish it. Mewtwo firing off another Psy Strike. Garchomp is gonna let it go, and they get taken out. Back in comes Metagross. Metagross will fire off a charge move. The threat of a Shadow Ball prevents them from going for a farm down. Meteor Mash is gonna KO. I will immediately bring in my Giratina Origin. They will be able to outpace me and reach a Meteor Mash, but one Meteor Mash is not fatal, so I am gonna let that go, farm up, and then just go straight for the Shadow Ball. This Shadow Ball will easily KO if they let it through, which they do. In the back, they have Mega Charizard, and that will be met with the Aggron. I do, of course, have to be careful of a potential Blast Burn, as I am a Steel type. They do go straight for the Blast Burn, and I commit the shield. But in the twos, Meteor Beam is part of what makes Mega Aggron so deadly. Even if they shield, it doesn't matter, because I have just increased my attack. I can safely double shield and just Dragon Tail through the entirety of this Mega Charizard Y. Mega Aggron gets the farm down, and that's a good game. Tough lead in the next match, Mega Aggron into Mega Swampert. I save switch into Mewtwo. Swampert is staying in, so I will fire off the Psy Strike before they get enough energy for the EQ. Psy Strike is going to land. Swampert continues to farm. I'm hoping this is not an Earthquake. I'm going to let this go. Opponent does just go for the Hydro Cannon. I go for the Psy Strike, but they make a frame-perfect catch, catching the Psy Strike onto their Zekrom. Zekrom will be able to get a nice farm down of my Mewtwo, but this then sets up a nice farm for my Mega Aggron. Our switch timers are decent, and I do intend to take full advantage of that. They fire off the last second Wild Charge, and the moment they bring back in the Swampert, I will immediately bring in Giratina. In comes Swampert, I send in Giratina. This Earthquake is going to hurt, so I will respect it with a shield. They full send the Quake. They're still switch locked in here. I'm going to fire off the Ominous Wind, so this way, if they want to preserve the Swampert, they have to give up a shield. Ominous Wind does get the shield. They are going to bank an Earthquake for later and send in a Fire Fang Reshiram. Very happy that this has Fire Fang, because my Giratina should be able to handle it nicely. I fire off the Shadow Ball. I continue to farm. I'm going to fire off the Ominous Wind as well. Ominous Wind should just about KO here. My opponent commits the shield. I farm up, switch into Mega Aggron, and they fire off a charge move. They go for the Draco Meteor, and now I'm in a great position to close out this game. Giratina gets the full farm down, and I leave with the Shadow Ball loaded. I do lose CMP to Mega Swampert. Mega Swampert is also a beast. They go straight for the Earthquake. I'm able to use my final shield, and this Shadow Ball will take care of the Mega Swampert as we survive the negative lead. Bit of a tricky lead in the next match, Mega Aggron into Mega Charizard Y. Charizard Y definitely a bit of a core breaker for this team, as it has the ability to hit both Mega Aggron and the Giratina for super effective damage. They will be firing off a Blast Burn, so I am definitely going to commit the shield, and then return fire with the Meteor Beam. Meteor Beam would easily KO from this range. My opponent is going to commit the shield. I'm perfectly fine with double shielding and farming all the way down. I'll be down a shield, but at the very least, I leave with a boosted Mega Aggron and quite a bit of energy. Blast Burn grabs the shield. My opponent is going to save switch into Dragonite, and honestly, I'm fine with staying in here. They have to superpower to KO here. Dragon Claw definitely not going to cut it. They're going to fire off a charge move. No shields remaining, and as you see, my opponent goes for a Dragon Claw, but that is not enough damage. Mega Aggron fully farms down and leaves with a Meteor Beam loaded. Oh my goodness, Mega Aggron absolutely going off in the back. They have Hydreigon, double boosted Meteor Beam, nearly one-shots, and we almost have Mega Aggron solo an entire team. I send in Giratina. Giratina is going to lose CMP to Hydreigon. Hydreigon fires off the Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing gets me low, but I'm able to hang on, and this Ominous Wind is going to KO. And from here, the Charizard should be low enough that I can just fast move it down. But that right there just shows the power of Mega Aggron. Great lead in the next match, Mega Aggron into Dialga. Mega Aggron does win all even shielding scenarios going up against Dialga, so this is a very nice spot to be in. I'm going to fire off the Meteor Beam right off the bat. Again, resisted damage, but boosting up Mega Aggron's attack is just incredibly deadly. They fire off the Draco Meteor. That does do a lot of damage, and I am able to farm down. My opponent sends in Kyogre. I'm going to bank energy for later and bring in my Mewtwo. Mewtwo, I'm hoping to check and see if they have a dark type in the back, because if they do, I need to bait it out right away. I'm going to continue to farm. They fire off a charge move. I'm going to let this through. Let's see if I can survive it. Surf, barely not enough to KO, and I'm able to reach the last second Psy Strike. My opponent switches into Togekiss. They do commit the shield. I bring in Aggron, going for the Meteor Beam, but unfortunately, I die with the move. I had the Heavy Slam, but I got greedy. Due to that mistake, I now only have one win con, and that's baiting, getting a shield, and a boost. I go 0 for 2, and this will be game over. Very unfortunate there. I should have just fired off the Heavy Slam, but I didn't, and unfortunately, I die with 2 shields. Hopping into the final match, picking up a very nice lead, Mega Aggron into Palkia. Palkia is taking super effective damage while only dealing resisted in return. My opponent is staying in here, so it looks like they are weak to Mega Aggron in the back. I'm going to let this through. They go for the Aqua Tail, and I'm just going straight for the Meteor Beam. Whether they shield it or not, I'm going to get the boost. Meteor Beam is able to KO. My opponent sends in Terrakion of all things. That is incredibly spicy. I will commit the shield as this is a Sacred Sword, and I'm actually going to look to try and catch a second Sacred Sword onto my Mewtwo. So I'm going to farm up here to the Meteor Beam, switch, and catch a Sacred Sword onto my Mewtwo. Now I have a stored Meteor Beam for later, and I have 2 Pokemon in the back that can take care of the Terrakion. My opponent's final Pokemon is going to be Florges, so I'm very happy that I was able to bait this out, so that way I can get some damage off on it before Giratina has to face it. I will be firing off Psy Strike number 2. Florges probably going to be committing a shield here, and they do exactly that. I'm going to let this through. We'll have to see, do they go for Disarming Voice? They do not. They go straight for the Moonblast. Moonblast plus farm is enough to KO. I send back in the Aggron. Aggron is firing off the Meteor Beam. Meteor Beam does get the shield, but I get the attack boost. These Dragon Tails are double resisted, but honestly, they're adding up a little bit on that Florges. Florges goes for Disarming Voice, and they fire off Disarming Voice number 2. All I had to do was get rid of their energy, and from here, Giratina will be able to finish off this game. Back in comes Terrakion. Terrakion farming up, and they're going to be firing off a charge move. Obviously, they can't go for Sacred Sword, so they're forced to go for Rock Slide. From here, I'm in a pretty decent spot. This should just be a Sacred Sword, so I can farm down and then leave with the Shadow Ball loaded, and that will be more than enough damage to take down the Florges. Back in comes the Florges. Giratina able to secure the win with the Shadow Ball. All in all, I had an absolute blast trying out the Mega Master League. As I mentioned, this is a league that will be arriving later in Season 13. It will be level 50 Masters, but I did want to test out Mega Aggron, even if it was at level 40, to see how it performed, to give people an idea of some decent Megas to invest in. And honestly, Mega Aggron looks to be an absolute beast. The Dragon Tail plus Steel combination proves to be very powerful, and Meteor Beam being able to buff up your attack to make Mega Aggron do more and more damage, it can be an absolute beast. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.